just hit the button. We are recording now.
All right. So this upgrade is not going to be as dramatic as the last upgrade. The last upgrade, there were a lot of changes. One of the big changes with this upgrade is that one of the changes from the last upgrade is supposed to work now. I haven't talked to Southeast Kansas Library System with their headquarters in Iola. They also use Koha, and they've upgraded already. And I need to contact them and find out if the text messaging works. But the text messaging is supposed to work in the new version, and I will try and find out from Jason this week whether or not it actually works. Because it would be nice if it did. Yeah. A couple of the changes that we're making are changes that we're making that are going to be cosmetic changes. And the first one here, I'm just going to start off on the login page. And here is the production server. This is what you log into now. When we upgrade, this is what you'll see. We're changing the logo. Part of what we've been doing in the last several months is we've been working with a company called Zephyr Digital Marketing, and one of the things that people got confused about is what are we? Because we refer to the system, a lot of people refer to us as Neckles, a lot of people refer to us as Nexpress, a lot of people refer to us as Koha, and everybody's confused. So we thought, let's take out one layer of confusion and just call the catalog, stop calling it Koha, we're just going to call it Nexpress. So that's the first change that you'll see the first time you log in. And right now I'm going to log in and check some things out to a card. So this is the production server again, and this is the test server, and the logo is different here too. And I'm going to check some items out to cards on both systems so you can see some differences that are coming up here. Apparently I've already got this one checked out. Okay. This is the patron I'm going to use as an example for this whole training, and she's been a bad patron lately. She's checked out so many things the last couple of days, it's really kind of insane. So I checked out 4 things on each account, and now I'm going to go over to the catalog. Sometime by the end of the day, I will put a link to the test server into the news area in Koha on the homepage here, because you all should be able to log into the test server. The way, it's hard to tell on this screen, but the background here is blue, so you don't accidentally do all of your work in the test server, which is not a good way to run the library. But you should be able to log into the test system with the same username and password that you log into the regular system. And I'm going to flip back over here to the OPAC. The test OPAC is where we're trying to make some changes. We're not going to, these changes aren't going to be here when we upgrade on December 9th. But it does look a little different, but we are looking at making some changes here. Some of the things I'm going to show you, though, are not cosmetic changes, and these are going to be new in the catalog. So that patron that we just checked those items out to, her card number is Jenny111, and I don't remember what her password is, but I'm going to enter the incorrect password. And so we do that once, twice, three times, four times, and it keeps you letting you try and again and again and again. In the currently, you can try a bazillion times. It's never going to stop you. With the new upgrade, the fifth time you try, you'll get this message here. Your account's been locked. You have to reset your password. Now the patron can, if they know their username and their email address, they can do that from the reset your password feature that was added to the catalog at the last upgrade. If they need to call the library, they can call the library, and you guys can reset it there just like you would any other password. But if anybody that tries to log in using the incorrect password more than 5 times, it's going to lock their account. So let me go back over here and change her password back to something, unlock the account.
But as a patron, they can change their own password?
Yes, that was a new feature in the last, I can show you that.
As long as we know their email address that they have associated with it, because it does
Yeah.
require that they have access to that email. Perfect.
That was a new feature the last time around, but I can go over that really quickly because we've got a lot of time. This training, I planned 2 hours for these sessions, but the last one I did took 1 hour and 5 minutes because my voice is still kind of rough, but at the last one I couldn't talk hardly at all, and so we buzzed through it really quickly. It took about 1 hour and 5 minutes. But to reset the password, they can click here on reset your password, and they have to know their login, which in this case is Jenny111, and the email address, which is george@nichols.org. There are this whole setup, this whole thing, it will email them, it will send them an email that has a link in it that they can click on. The email, though, goes out with the regular Koha emails, so they don't go out until 15 minutes past the hour. So if the patron does this at 10:16, like we are right now,
Yeah.
they're not going to get the email until 11:16. And there are two things going on here, is that somebody is working on a development that will make these instant. But I am also going to ask Bywater when they make this change to change our email queue to send every 15 minutes, so that a patron that does this won't have to wait more than 15 minutes. I'm going to have them do that at the same time that we do the upgrade.
And you'll let us know if that happens or when that happens.
Yeah, it'll just be the 10th of December. It'll be effective the 10th. The upgrade will be the 9th of December. It's a Saturday, and it's going to happen after 8 p.m. in the evening. It'll be done by Sunday morning.
And that'll be the every 15-minute.
Yeah, that'll be. I'm going to have them do that at the same time.
Okay.
The patron sees the email. Let's see where I clicked on the wrong tab there, didn't I? I'm going to go back. Under notices, this is what that email looks like when the patron.
They'll get it within. No, they'll have to get it.
Yeah, they'll get it in their email, but the test server isn't set up to send an email because I just had the test server updated,
Sure.
and so if it was sending email, your patrons would be getting all kinds of emails saying things are due that aren't. But that's what the link looks like, and when they click on it, it takes them to the catalog, and they can create a new password. But the things that a patron needs for that, in order for that to work, are they have to have their username and their email address. If they don't have an email address in their account, it's not going to work. And if they can't remember their username, it's not going to work. So let me get this back to the catalog. And over here, I'm going to log into this patron's account this way. So the lockout after 5 times is a new feature, and this reset your password is an old feature that was one of the 50 bazillion features added the last time around, which is why a lot of people don't remember it. So There are a lot of places in Koha where you, on any of the screens, you can see up here, if you're not logged in, there's the login button.
I have a quick question though.
Sure.
Sorry. To go back to where you log in and it's gonna send the email if you forgot your password. Is there any way you could write a message on there that says, you have a message that says we're gonna send the new link to your email. Can we also say this could take up to 15 minutes?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because I've had patrons call that said we've tried to change it 6 times and I haven't got the email. And I didn't know that it wasn't going out until 15 minutes or so.
Let me make a note for that.
Yeah, people might, I don't know if they'll read it, but at least we can say, hey, we told you. Thank you.
We're liable to send about 10 requests, right?
Right, exactly. I'll get 15 phone calls and then, yeah.
No, that's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that. And hopefully there is work being done to make it so that the email is instant.
Correct.
But
even then,
but that could,
even
you know,
instant, if we tell them 15.
yeah.
They won't.
Yeah, it won't be a panic if they don't get it right away.
Well, and when I say there's work being done, you know, I was told, you know, 5 years ago, the text messaging was just around the corner.
That's a long one.
Yeah, somebody's working on it, but it might take a while. So,
Thank you.
so that login button up there at the top of the screen appears on every screen in the OPAC. And when a patron logs into their account, it takes them here. But a lot of times this isn't where the patron wants to be.
Right.
One of the most common things, you know, if you're on the home page and you want to get to Flipster, you have to log in to get to Flipster. But then as soon as you log in, you're not there where you can click on the link for Flipster anymore. Whoops. So let me just go back here. So I added some links here to take you back to the home page or to go to Flipster. And the way that I tried to put them is that if there aren't any messages on the patron's account, it's right in the middle of the page where your mouse lands when you go there, so that there's those two links right there to make it easy to figure out where you want to go. That's just a really minor change. A lot of these changes are really minor changes, but I want to make sure everybody's aware of where they're going. Everybody that's had this cold, it's lingered.
Can you toss that away? Because I didn't throw any in my pocket when I left. Thank you. Aren't you glad you sat next to me?
Behind you or
It's
something.
the coughing, it's the constant snot river. Sorry, people.
Let's see, let me log into a patron over here same patron in the production system. Whoops. There are a couple of other there's one other minor change that you'll be able to see here. So I've got the same items checked out to both patrons and that. In the current system, when a patron has a lot of stuff checked out and they look at their account, right now they can only sort it by title and due date and call number. This is another minor change. If I can get that bar out of the way. There we go. They'll now be able to sort it by author. These have been broken into title and author. The other thing that you'll all probably have noticed right here, right now, is there's another column here that isn't on the other. It's a column for report a problem. This is the one that I've been spending the most amount of time getting it ready for us to use because I knew that this was coming along, but I hadn't read a lot of the specifications of the bug, and so what this does here is it gives the patron an opportunity. Like, let's say they've checked out this book and they get it home and they notice that pages are loose or missing. they can actually come in, look at their account. And they can leave a note there. And so that one is the Designful Company. Okay. So when they click on this, it attaches a note to this checkout. The problem that we have with this, though, is that it attaches the note to the checkout. It doesn't attach the note to the item, and it doesn't attach the note to the patron. It attaches it to the checkout. So you see this note one time when the item is checked in. As soon as it's checked in, the note's gone. It doesn't stay with the item, and it doesn't stay with the patron. But I've added some things. You weren't at the Nexpress meeting, were you? You weren't at the users group meeting. The first time I showed it to everybody at the Nexpress users group meeting, everybody said, well, what good is that? So I've actually spent a great deal of time trying to figure out a way to make this useful. So I'm going to go back here and check this item in. If I can get the right one.
Carolyn wants to know who sees that.
Well, if you look at the check-in here, I'm checking that item in, and this is where you see it. And it only shows up the first time the item is checked in. If I scan this again to check it in a second time, the note won't show up. So what I did, early on, this note was really simple. It said patron note. It had a date, and it had the actual note, which is this part right here. The pages are loose, falling out. So what I did after we talked at that first meeting when I discussed these changes is I added a button so that when this note pops up, well, the first thing that happens is when this note pops up, it takes the cursor out of this box. So you can't check anything else in until you've actually, so if you accidentally scan 10 more things, it's not going to clear the note off the screen. So you have to at least look at the note before you click here to see it. But it's got a print button. So this will print, and I don't know if you guys can see that on Zoom because it's in a different window, but it will print that, and it's formatted to come out as a receipt so that you can print that if you have a receipt printer, stick it in the book, and so then when it goes back to the home library, there'll be a record that the patron has said that there was a problem with that item. I also, after talking at the last couple of meetings, this patron note, it would be nice if there was a way to, let's say that there's an item that is owned by Baldwin, it goes to Baser, the patron checks it out at Baser, and they report a problem with it, but then it's got a hold on it to go next to like Linwood. So that note, if you print it, it's got a good chance of not making it all the way back to Linwood, making it from Baser to Linwood back to Baldwin. So I created a form on the Neckles Wiki. So if you click on this button, it does two things. It opens that form in a new window, and it copies all of this text to the clipboard. So if you click on this, it's going to open this new window. You can scroll down here, type Control-V, and that entire note is right there. All you have to do is put in your email address and choose which library you want to send that information to. So that way, the library that owns the item is going to get the information from the note. The system in Koha, the way they designed it, it does actually send a copy of the note by email automatically to the patron who placed the note, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. So the patron knows that they put a note on the item that said that it's got torn pages. But this way, if if this item was owned by Baldwin, like I said, you could choose Baldwin. Or actually, we've got.
Is there a way to do this when the patron comes up to the desk and says the pages are torn? About saying, well, go log into your account and do a note. I mean, is there a way for staff to do that? Because it's a really cool idea.
I could put this link somewhere where it'd be easy for staff to find. Yeah, that's a good idea. Or I guess I keep putting my pen in my pocket.
Because I will get that more than I will get patrons willing to log in to do it.
Well, if they physically walk into the library and we check it in, will we get the same note on our check computers? Or is that only on the OPAC?
You can only add the note on the OPAC.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but I don't think it was thought out very well. I don't know who developed it, and I don't know if it was sponsored. I don't think it was. I think it was an idea somebody came up with. But a lot of the times, the developers are people that either have never worked in a library or they don't work in a library anymore because they're working for another company now. So they don't necessarily know what they don't have a deep connection to the workflows that people actually go through every day. But yeah, I can put a link to this form somewhere so that it'd be easy to fill out. And I did put an anti-spam feature in here where you actually have to type Kansas. But then this will send the note, a copy of this to me and to Baser and to Baldwin, or whichever the libraries you select. It'll make sure that everything goes through. And I'm just going to make sure that all comes to me so you guys don't get weird emails at your library right now. And then when it's done, it actually says the form was successfully submitted, and you can close that window. So that, and then once you click on either print this note or email this, it does put the cursor back here so you don't have to manually go through and do that. So that's gone through a lot of refinements since the first time I showed it to people almost a month ago, I guess now. Well, no, what is today? Today is that's
We're
about,
still in November.
it's 20 days, so it's been a long 20 days. So I'm going to scroll down here a little bit, and you can see another change that's here. There is now on the check-in page, under the patron's name, it'll tell you how many things are still checked out to the patron. So if I check in something else that's checked out to this patron's account, that number is 6 right there. Check in something else, it goes to 5. Check in the next thing for them. So this is useful for when patrons, you check in a bunch of their stuff and they say, how many things do I still have out? It's right there. Yeah, I thought that was a nice little feature. Oh, and I'm forgetting a couple of things with the notes. These reports don't have numbers yet because I've only created them in the test server, but there are 4 reports for that note feature. And these aren't going to have the same numbers in the production system, but there's one, report number 3008, which I'll run that in a new window. This one, if you enter a patron's barcode number, it'll show you all the notes that are associated with that patron, provided the patron doesn't have their checkout history set to be deleted. So it'll tell you if the item, it'll give you their barcode number, it'll give you the item barcode number, it'll tell you if the item is still checked in or checked out, and it'll actually give you a copy of the note and the date when it was placed. This patron has had 225 notes that they've already placed because these 5 DVDs have been checked out for this patron that many times while I've been trying to perfect this. But that would be something that would probably be interesting. I mean, if you have one patron that, every book he checks out, he says there's something wrong with it, this would be a way to,
DVD won't work.
yeah,
Maybe
maybe it's that $9.99 DVD player you bought at Rite Aid, known for their electronics department. The other option you have is there's another one that will do this by item barcode number, so you can see any notes attached to that barcode. So maybe if you see that the same DVD has, like, every patron that checks it out is saying there's a problem with it, maybe there really is a problem with it. Maybe it's not the $9.99 DVD player from Rite Aid. And then somebody at the last session I was at wanted to know if I could write a report that does this by library. So you can just run, there's one for checkout library and one for owning library. So if you want to see all of the notes placed on items checked out right now, I think the only library that any of these have been checked out is Nichols. That'll show you all the notes that are associated with this place. And then this one will show you all of the things based on the item's home library. So there's one by home library and one by the library the items were checked out at. And those will have numbers once we upgrade. I'll move those into the other, into the production system. Because if I move them into the production system right now and somebody tries to run one, it's going to crash things because it's trying to access tables that aren't there. That's why they're not there yet, and that's why they don't have numbers yet. So I didn't want to forget that. This is a really minor change. It's a really minor change. On advanced search, and this is in the catalog, and it's in the staff client and in the OPAC. Right now, you can do a search on shelving location. So we're only using 3 shelving locations: adult, children's, young adult. So it's never been useful for us, and it's never been that big a deal. But in the new version, it's not going to be an option there. And I don't know why, but I don't know why it was there in the first place, and I don't know why it's gone. But if anybody's wondering, it's just part of the upgrade. So that, like I said, a lot of these changes are pretty minor. Checkouts on the check-in table. There's another thing that I don't know if anybody noticed it when we were on the check-in table. Let me go over there and check some more items in. So right now, if you want to run the holds queue, if you want to switch from checkout to check-in to renew, you can do that up here. You can do that by clicking on these. You've got all of these reports over here. If we switch to check-in, in the currently in the production system, there's nothing over here. In the new version, all those things that you see on that homepage, on that circulation homepage, are going to be here on the left, repeated on every page that has this breadcrumb up here that says circulation will have that sidebar on the left. So if you're checking in and you decide you need to run the holds queue, you don't need to go to circulation that runs the holds queue. It'll just be right there. The bigger effect that I think people are going to notice is right now you'll notice all of this is kind of centered. By putting that stuff over there, it takes this stuff out of the center and it puts it screen wide except for that area over here. So that's what I think people are going to notice more than me is they're going to notice that it looks different, and that's the reason why it looks different. So. This one is a change that, let's see. This is why I left a fine on this patron's account. Is because there is a change on the fines page. Ever since the last upgrade, we have had all kinds of problems with the reverse button. I don't know how many of you have ever reversed a fine, but the way it's supposed to work is like let's say a patron pays a fine and their check bounces, so you can go in and reverse that payment. Well, this patron doesn't have any fines in the production server. See, here's a payment, and right now you can go over here and click on reverse. In the new version, that reverse button isn't going to be there. What's been happening since the last upgrade is when somebody clicks on reverse, it doesn't, the numbers aren't adding up. So they, like if we were to reverse this $3 payment, it's supposed to make the outstanding balance back to $3, and 3 and 2 at the bottom of the screen, they don't add up right, and it's not working. And so that button is just being removed. There's been a long process with, Kyle at Bywater has for about 4 years now been working on rewriting the whole payment and account system in Koha. And he's doing a lot of things to try to get this, to try and make it more modern, to make it more useful. Originally, when Koha was written, it didn't have fines. There were no fines. There were no fines in the system because the library that sponsored the original development of Koha didn't charge fines. So they didn't add a fines module, so the fines module was kind of stuck in later. And the fines module is really designed for making it easy in HTML to display the fines on the screen, and it has no basis in any kind of accounting principles whatsoever. There are also problems with credits. If you add a manual credit, they don't reconcile with the bills, and so you end up with these, like you'll have a patron that has a $5 debt and a $5 credit, and they don't reconcile with each other. So they have and effectively have a zero balance, but they never resolve. They never offset each other properly, and the reverse thing is part of that. It just doesn't work right because of bad design by the people in wherever it was that added the fines. Some of the libraries there are a lot of libraries in France that use Koha. They don't charge fines either. They do what's called debarment. So if you keep your book overdue 5 days, then you're not allowed to borrow for 5 days after you return that book. And if you keep the book overdue for 100 days, then you're not allowed to borrow for 100 days after you return the book. So yeah, that'd be the end of half of your patrons, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see, we've got another one here that is a nice, simple little one. The movie Dunkirk is going to be out soon, and I know it's on order. And it's got Benedict Cumberbatch in it, so I'll use this as an example. So right now, if we were to go over here and search for Dunkirk, so the patron comes in and and that was a bad example, I guess, because I was too specific. Yeah, it is. Okay, there we go. So right now the patron comes in and they say, I want to get this Dunkirk movie. How many holds are there on it? You have to click here, go to the item, and see that there are 59 holds on it. In the new version, right here, you can see how many holds there are. Right there, it just says 15. That's on the old version, the old BBC documentary about Dunkirk.
That's the one that everybody wants.
This is the one with the one with Kenneth Branagh is the one everybody wants, and the one that's available is the one that nobody wants.
Now,
But it does have.
Yeah.
Can you go back one screen, please? And it might just be that I never looked at it. Under online resources where it says view cover art in there?
It depends on the MARC record.
Okay,
The MARC record that this, some of the MARC records, depending on where they come from, they might have a link to a cover image.
okay. I mean, sometimes it just shows up. I've never just seen that link before. Okay.
Yeah, that means that whoever created the original MARC record has put a link in the 856 field to the cover art.
Okay.
So that one is a minor change, but I think it's actually really useful. This is a change that, this next one is a change that I can't show you because it has to do with the notices. So Baldwin is not terribly far from Ottawa. So there's a pretty good chance that you guys have patrons that use the Baldwin Library and the Ottawa Library. That's a good example. In Baser, you've got everybody around you. So you have tons of people that are using different libraries. Right now, if a patron gets an overdue notice, if they've got 2 things checked out from Baldwin and 2 things checked out from Ottawa, and they're all overdue, the overdue notice that's sent from Baldwin is going to have all 4 of those items on it, even though only 2 of them are from Baldwin and 2 of them are from Ottawa. With the update, the overdue notices sent from Baldwin will only have the things that were checked out of Baldwin. The overdue notice sent from Ottawa will only have the things checked out from Ottawa. Which I guess that's confusing for patrons when they get an overdue notice from one library saying you have 4 things overdue, and then they get an overdue notice from another library that says you have the same 4 things due. So this is an upgrade that I can't show you because we have the notices turned off in the test server. But that's what it's supposed to do, and my understanding is that it works. So hopefully you'll never have to explain that to patrons again. This is a change that, this next one is a change that has to do with the lists. We have all these lists on the front page of the catalog. You know, there's these newly added items. Well, actually, that's a different kind of list. NPR books, best books of 2016. That's probably an old list. We should probably. To create a new list currently from the staff client, you go to lists, you say new list. And then we can start adding items over here. You can scan 1 barcode at a time. It's like checking things in. You scan one, wait for the page to reload, scan the next one. In the new, after the upgrade, the new version will have an input box. So you can scan like 50 items and then click add once. It'll add them all at the same time. We are going to try and start using lists more to do some curated collections, and so that's something that might actually be helpful for making these lists more accessible and more easier to add to. We have a list problem, of course, because we have 280 billion. It could be close.
It's a lot of lists, and many of them are.
And many of them have no items.
Right. 14 pages at 20 per page.
See, list. There's a list here called 1 that has 4 items on it. And I have no idea. When I look at the list, there's a report I can run. There's a lot of lists that don't have any patrons attached to them anymore because the patrons' account's been deleted. Those should probably be the first lists to go. But we need to figure out a way to manage the lists better. But we're trying to come up with some ways that we can make the lists do more work for us, because one of the things that Zephyr found from talking to patrons is they would like to be able to come in and they'd like there to be more easier access to things like, you know, what are some staff suggestions or a New York Times bestseller list that they can.
I just recently stole shamelessly, another library's Stranger Things 2 display, and went through and found all the books that we had in Express and made a list of it. And a couple of our libraries put that on their blogs, you know, interested in Stranger Things 2, here are some read-alike kind of things. So that is, you could do displays, you could do staff picks, you could do all kinds of fun stuff. And then, I don't know, would be, I think, yeah, Stranger Things 2 reads.
Yeah, there it is. It's got 11 items on it, so.
So this is things that some libraries didn't display, and I just scrapped them and made it into a list. And it wasn't terribly difficult, but that's kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, that's one way of using it. One of the best uses of lists I've ever seen is at the Lewiston, Idaho Library. Heather was the youth services librarian, and she did story times, and she had a list for each month, October story times, and every time she read stuff, every book that she used in the story time in the month of October, she added that list. And then that way she had bookmarks.
Not really.
She had bookmarks with a QR code on them. So when a parent asked, you know, what was that book that you read 3 weeks ago, she could just hand them a bookmark and they could scan the QR code with their phone and take them right to the list. So you can you've got staff that can do that, don't you?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Nothing but time over here down there. Well, but I love that list idea. I didn't know it was there. Now I'm going to play.
Yeah.
It would be great for, you know, anything.
Oh, yeah.
And
Garden
nice
books,
thing,
Woodville and White Winners,
Yeah.
Stranger Things. I mean, the whole thing would be great.
Yeah.
We do
New stuff.
we have reports that can pull the lists and put them in HTML. What I did is just copy the page HTML and send it out to whoever wanted it. But and I think Lyndon had it on their blog for a little while, Gina. But yeah, so there are ways you can either link to the list or you can pull the list out and have them on your webpage. Different ways to advertise them.
I'm hoping when I have some more time in a month or two that we can generate a way that you can run a report that'll give you the HTML for a list that'll be able to pull the cover images in from the same COSI server that we're getting all of the other cover images from. So if it has, generally that would mean that if it has a cover image in the OPAC, it would have a cover image in the HTML.
Page, yeah.
But that would be a quick way then of getting people, you know, because right now, you know, Travis at Bonner Springs is doing some really nice lists on their website, but he has to go in and he has to get the link and he has to kind of build it manually. So we're trying to find some ways to make it so it'll be easier. You can just, if you have a stack of books, you can just scan them all, create the list, and then run a report to generate the HTML that you could then plug into a website. Well, you guys, that was one of the things Zephyr kept talking about was how great your emails are. Your
And that all has to be built by hand too.
Yeah,
And
they
does HTML, so this would be one thing that.
Yeah. Zephyr was really impressed though that you're able to do that consistently every month and do a good job, and Mike actually really likes getting your emails because he signed up for them. So, but he's really impressed with how consistent you guys are, and that's not typical. This is another change. This is a change that's already in the catalog that I wanted to show to everybody. So right now, I can show you this in the production server. There is this tag down here. One of the updates in the last version of Koha was patrons have the ability to suggest changes to their account. They can say, I've changed my address. And it doesn't actually change their address. It sends everything to this link here where, you know, there's this link on the homepage that says these are the patrons who are requesting modifications to their account. One of the complaints that I've had about that is, in Baldwin, you see everybody's requested updates. Well, that's not the case anymore, because what I did is I made it so that it's only going to show you the ones where it matches your library up here. So right now on the homepage, it said there are 20 updates, but I don't see any of them because none of them are for Nichols. I have a button where I can see all of them because I need a button for that. But if I were to switch over to, I kind of feel like I need to be able to know what's going on. Yeah, it is overrated. But so if I'm logged into Basor, I only see that there's one patron from Basor. So instead of seeing, that big long list and having to sort through and find Basor, the people at Basor just see the one that's applicable to them. Or if I'm at, is there anybody? Horton has got one, two. Horton's got a couple. So in Horton, they would only be able to see the two that apply to their patrons. So I did structure it so that in Donovan County, all of the Donovan County libraries can see all of the Donovan County updates. But since I created this, I haven't seen any updates for Donovan County patrons. So that's something that it's already in the system, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that was there. This next one is the most complicated one, and it's the one that I'm not sure what to do with yet. So over here earlier, I don't know how many of you noticed in the background here, this new tab here, Patron Clubs. In the new version of Koha, we have the ability to create patron clubs, and this is the first step in a new feature. This comes from a development suggested by Southeast Kansas Library System. They want to create essentially a list of patrons that they can call a club, and then the plan is that you create the club, and eventually there will be a way to, like, if there could be a John Grisham club, and you enroll the patrons that want to be in the John Grisham club into the club, and then when the new John Grisham book comes out, you click a button and you place a hold on the new John Grisham book for everybody in that club. That's the idea. It's not there yet, but that's one of the places that this is going.
But at this point, we could also just send an email and say there's a new John Grisham coming out.
Yes, you could do that.
Okay. Or story time. You could do a story time club.
Yeah, and actually the first thing I thought of, when I worked on the bookmobile for Boise Public Library, we managed the summer reading program with a little 3x5 file cards in a little box.
Ours are 5x5.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we didn't have that much. We didn't have room for cards that big.
Oh, okay.
Neither do we.
We just had the little file box, and then we had like 400 little cards in it and alphabetically arranged, and there was one color for preschool, there was one color for grade school, there was one color for young adult. And that was the way we organized the summer reading club. Here would be a situation where we could create a Baldwin summer reading club for preschoolers, and they could enroll themselves in it. And then the advantage of this would be that you would be able to run reports.
That's my goal. Someday I want to be there.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot to figure out of how to use this, but I created a couple of clubs just for testing. Here I created an Ottawa summer reading preschooler, so the patron could click on enroll, and then they could, how many people are you enrolling on this library card in this club? 3. I made it really simple. This club is responsible for 3. This card is responsible for 3 preschoolers. And then they're enrolled in this club. A couple of the things that have been suggested that I haven't been able to work on yet is there a way we could have, if we're putting the library names in here, is there a way that I can make the libraries that the patron and their home library float to the top? And I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm going to work on that. there are just a lot of issues to figure out with it, and I'm going to try and figure it out, and I'm going to have to ask for a lot of help with that to figure out how to make this useful. But that's, that's one way it could be used. I did create a book club, and I just created a simple list of questions. What's your favorite type of book to read? Enter your email address if you want to share that with other club members. Enter your phone number if you want to share it with other club members. Do you prefer regular large print or audiobooks? Just basic questions, for, that you would want for some kind of a book club. But it could be used for book clubs. It could be used for summer reading. Eventually, that's the goal, though, is to have this set up so that it could be a way for patrons to say, I want the new John Grisham book, and then have it so that staff, that's one of the ultimate designs for it, is to make it easier for staff to place, holds on the new John Grisham book for a whole bunch of people at once. That's really what Southeast wanted when they started talking about this feature. The mechanics of it are really complicated because there is a template for what type of club, and then there's an actual structure for building the clubs. And I've already been looking at it, and I think that the best way to handle it is to make it so that any staff member can enroll people in the club, but only directors would have the ability to create new clubs. And I would be the only one that would have the ability to create club templates. Because I would be afraid of it getting to be like lists where there's, a bazillion different things. But in order to create a club, you have to create a template for the type of club. And I just created two, one for reading club and one for summer reading. But to create a new template, you have to give it a name, and you have to decide what kind of questions it's going to ask when people enroll. And you can make the clubs public so that patrons can enroll in them themselves, or you can make them staff only so that only staff can manage the clubs. You can also limit them to a single library, which ideally I would like that to be so that only people that are logged in at a library can manage those clubs. But the way they set it up is that it's only people that have a home library of that library can enroll in those clubs. So if we created a club and said Baldwin, it would only be people with a Baldwin home library could join that club, which isn't what I was hoping for, but we might be able to add some, who's allowed to manage this club parameters at a later time. But after a template is created, then you can actually take that template and create clubs based on those templates. And so I think that's really going to be, and you can give them a start date and an end date. So you can say that, the summer reading club starts on May 1st. So you can have people enrolling online without coming to the library to fill out the little 3x5 card, which their 5x7 card, yes. You people in your big buildings, not those little book things. When I worked at Boise Public Library, on the bookmobile, we usually did about 450 summer reading people. At the main library, it was usually about 4,000. So they actually would hire people in the summer that was their only job, was to manage summer reading. They would hire summer employees that was all they did. And being that big, they also had great ideas for how to make it simpler. You've got to figure out ways to make it simple. So the adult summer reading club was easy. You read 2 books, you fill out a card, you drop it in the raffle. There's no management involved. Nobody has to sign up ahead of time. You just make them as simple as you can. But I did put age groups in here. And there can be start dates and end dates so that you can say that this starts in May 1st so that kids can enroll before summer reading starts. And then you put an end date like October so that you've got time to get any statistics you want from the system when it's over. But those are the different options with this. But like I said, it's really going to be a while before we figure out how to do it and what's useful And I think a first step would be just making it so that the ones that patrons can enroll in themselves, the ones for their library float to the top. Because it, with 53 libraries, 53 branches, there's a huge potential for ending up with like 4,000 clubs. And the more clubs there are, the slower that page is going to load. So right now there's 6. But if you get 4,000 in there, that loading is going to take a lot longer. So I will keep an eye on that and let everybody know what we can do with it and things like that. So that kind of covers the new things. The last thing I've been doing in each of these training sessions is going over how to set up the text messaging, because it's been so long. It's been like 8 months since we did that with the last version. So do you guys want me to go over that? So I'm going to go back to this same patron again and click on edit. And you can do this when you're creating the patron or after they've already been created. It doesn't make a difference. All the way down at the bottom here with the messaging preferences. Let me clear all these. Let me go back to this. Let me go back to a fresh patron, just like any new patron that you'll see in here. And actually, I didn't finish deleting everything I wanted to do there. Okay. All right, this is what a patron would look like if you're just creating them. By default, the only thing that we have set up to be turned on is hold filled emails. But I created, with the last upgrade, we added these buttons to make it easy to set the item due in the advance notice and to give them those 3 days or 5 days advance. For the text messaging, the first thing you have to do is select a provider. And as soon as you click on this provider box, it's going to give you this reminder message up here. And there are a couple of reminders in here that are really important. Is if a patron is being billed by their cellular phone service for text messages, every time the system sends them a text message, they're going to be charged for that. We don't charge anything for sending the text messages, but some cell phone providers charge for receiving text messages. So they should, if patrons have questions about that, there's a reminder here that they need to talk to their cell phone provider, because we don't have any control over the fees. This notice, item due and advance notice, they are sent every morning at 2:15 a.m. So my phone is set up so that from like 10 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't make any noise. I've got the do not disturb feature turned on. The only time it'll make a noise is if it's somebody on my list of priority people, or if somebody tries to call twice within 5 minutes. Not everybody knows how to do that. I know if my mom was still alive, she would certainly not be able to manage a cell phone. She would need one of those ones you see advertised in the AARP magazine. Yeah, or Jitterbug or whatever it is, yeah. And even that would be too complicated for her. So if a patron doesn't want to receive those notices at 2:15 a.m., then they shouldn't sign up for the text messages. Because the reason they go at 2:15 a.m. is that's when Koha generates a lot of the mail. And there's a lot of things that have to happen. They're all called cron jobs, and they have to run in a certain order. It's like a stack of dominoes. If you have them, they need to fall in the right order, and if one doesn't fall right, then the others get messed up. And so they're designed not to all run at the same time, because if they all ran at the same time, there'd be like a 90% chance that they would all fail. So 2:15 is when we have it scheduled, because that seems to be the best time for it. Somebody said, why don't we change the time on those to make them happen at a different time? Well, it's better if it doesn't happen when the libraries are open. And it has to happen before other things happen. So if we were able to move the time on it, we would be able to move it from like 2:15 to like 3:15, or maybe 2:15 to 1:15. There isn't a lot of flexibility there.
So right now, when somebody has it set to get an email when their hold is filled, and we check in a book, and it pops up that there's a hold on it, we set the hold, whatever, this sends them an email immediately.
Yeah, that one sends them an email. I think it's at 15 past the hour.
Okay,
Yeah, but the
but the text messaging won't be that.
the text message, the hold filled will be the same.
Okay.
Hold filled will be at 15 past the hour. Item due, the one that says your books are due today, and the one that says your books are due in 3 days, those all happen at 2:15 a.m. So these three down here happen at 1/4 past, but these two top ones happen at 2:15, and that's when the overdue notices get sent out too. So they all happen at that time, and we can't really change that time. The hold filled happens though every hour, and if we do change to every 15 minutes, it'll happen every 15 minutes. The one that happens instantly, without exception, is the one when you create a card and the patrons get that email that says "Welcome to the library." That one is instant all the time, and I don't know why they don't have the password one set up the same way. But all the other ones, whenever Koha generates a message that needs to go to the patron, it gets put in the message queue, and then the message queue is sent at 15 minutes past the hour, except for the overdue notices and the item due and the advance notes. They go out I think they're generated at 2 a.m. and then they get sent at 2:15 when that happens.
So by filling in this text message information, they will no longer receive an email regarding, or will they receive both?
They can do both.
Okay.
Yeah. The first thing you have to do though is you have to click on this. You have to choose their provider. It's like my provider is, where is it? I know I put it in here. Republic. So until you choose a provider and enter a phone number, you can't click on any of these boxes. In the text message number here, you have to enter a 10-digit number. It can't just be a 7-digit number. You can't enter any parentheses or dashes. It can only be digits. And I've set it up so that you actually can't. I manipulated the code behind that box so that all you can enter there are digits. And once you've got 10 digits in there, then you can start choosing what kind of messages they'll get. Currently, the text messages actually, they do work, but the only two that work are item check-in and item checkout. So if you have this set up for a patron and you click on item check-in, every time they check in an item, they'll get an email, they'll get a text message saying, hey, you just checked in an item. And there's another one that's item checkout. Every time they check out an item, they'll get a text message that says, hey, you just checked out an item. Those are the only two that work right now, and they're not particularly useful for people. The one thing, the advance notice has to have the same date as the email. So if the patron wants an email and a text message, they can't have like the text message go 3 days ahead and the email go 5 days ahead. They have to be on the same day. There's no way to separate those two. But all you have to do once you have the provider and the phone number there is click on the boxes for the messages they want to receive. And I tried to make this simple. You know, there's buttons up here so that if they want hold text only, that's one button. 5 days advance clicks all the right boxes. 3 days advance clicks the right boxes and clears them all. So that I tried to make it so that there isn't a need for a lot of clicking. And then once you click save, theoretically, when the patron has items due in 3 days or 5 days, they'll get the text message. The text messages are really simple because they're limited to, it's longer than a tweet. It's like 180 characters or 240 characters, something like that. There is a limit on the number of characters, but it's bigger than a tweet. I remember
Although
that.
tweets are now.
Tweets are getting bigger too, yeah.
So does it just say your whole?
Yeah, I think that I set them all up so that, and we can look at those. I made them really simple. Let's see. This takes forever to load because the test server is slow. It takes like a couple of minutes for it to sort the table. So, advanced item due reminder, here we go. SMS. You have library items to due today at branch name. They're that simple. They're really short. Because anything bigger isn't going to fit. I mean, all it has is
Like 160 characters
160.
is the total. So yeah, more than what PT.
You want your Kleenex box back?
I think I'm good. So I think the one for this is item due reminder. This is things are due today. I think the other one says you have things due in X number of days at this library. They're all really simple like that. And the one for hold, I think it just says you have a hold available at. You have an item available, library item available at. Because I wanted to include the word library in all of these so that people don't go, well, what the hell does that mean? And patrons can manage these themselves. If they log into their account under their messaging, they have control over which messages they receive. And they can change this themselves too. And I did put down here a legend of what these different things mean.
So it says, please contact the library staff member if you're unsure of your mobile service provider.
Yes, and
So when they do that, what do we?
down here in the,
Stand there.
there is a link here,
Okay.
free carrier lookup. If you click on that and you give it a phone number, my old phone number in Idaho, do a search, it'll tell you who the carrier is.
Okay.
The one thing about this is that it limits you to like 30 times a month. Most people under 40 seem to know who their provider is.
I was gonna say, most people are paying the bill, but then
Right.
my parents are on they pay me, and I pay the bill.
Okay.
Now they were paying the bill before we moved over so they may be able to say that they're Sprint customers. Might not, because they pay Robin.
Is Robin on there?
Robin is my mobile service provider.
Robin's my she makes it all happen.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, anybody under 40 ought to be able to answer the question. Over that, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Under
All right,
50. All right, under 50.
Fair enough. I keep forgetting I'm over 40.
Yeah. So there is that, and there was another one that I had on here earlier when we started doing this, that the website shut down. So I'll try and look for another one to make sure we have a couple of different options there. But once they've got those things checked, they should be able to. Get the text messages now. We'll just. And if you do have anybody that comes in and they say I'm with like Trump Wireless or something like that that you don't see on the list, let me know and I can find out what all of these different carriers have to be set up individually. There's a table in Koha that I have to go in and add information for. So if you have somebody come in and their provider isn't on this list, let me know and I can try and find out the information to add that stuff to the list. So I found a really good list that's supposed to have all the carriers, all the major carriers in the country. And it had a bunch that I've never heard of. That, Singular I'd heard of, but, Mobil, I think this is a Serbian, Tangiers, Belgium, Bermuda. I just kind of dumped the whole list in here. So, if somebody does have some weird provider, hopefully we'd be able to find out what the configuration is so we could add that to this. So. And that, like I said, this is not a full 2 hours, but that's pretty much it unless anybody has any questions.
The only question I have, we were working on, if all the patron wants a book and they're on hold, if they're at the bottom of the list and they immediately try to pull that person out, that glitch fixed. Because we seem to be having problems with it. So if I wanted the new John Grisham book and I'm number 56 on the holds list and I'm the only Baldwin patron, my name doesn't immediately go to the top of that list.
Prioritizing local goals.
It doesn't go to the list, but it will pull you up, when you check it in, it will pull that up from wherever.
It will, and then we just override it. Does that make sense?
We want the Baldwin page to be the Baldwin book.
They should, if it's not working, let me know when it doesn't work and give me the patron's barcode number and the title, and I'll try and figure out what's going on.
We found that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it might just be us.
This is the first complaint that I've heard about that. So.
Okay.
Oh, we haven't had it work very well ever.
Okay.
And then we lost then Claudia left, so.
Yeah.
We don't really have a central person to say,
Yeah.
this isn't working. We just all kind of know
Okay.
it isn't working.
Basically, what we do is we check them all out to Cheryl, and then they.
That's why she.
And that's why they stay in Baldwin, and then,
I'm gonna say.
Well, let's see here.
Those 215 next.
Let's see here what we've got. We can, if nobody online has any questions.
No, nothing has come through online.
Well, we can stop recording, and thanks for attending, and who all was there?
Carolyn and Ralph and Charlie.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah. All right, well, I will stop the recording, but we'll continue the.
Yeah, I'll see if I can answer their question.